Welcome, everybody. I'm here with the author of AI for Boomers, Protect Your Money, Health and Time in the Age of AI, Noah Kruthaupt. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. So let's talk about the book. So you open with the idea that most people misunderstand what AI actually is. If you had to strip away the hype for people who are struggling with the concept of AI, what is it in the most practical sense for everyday people?
Yeah, so we talk about this a lot in the book, especially just setting the foundations. It's something that just a lot of people miss, and a lot of people use this technology without understanding the foundation. So this is a good question to start with for someone that doesn't understand it. But it's just something you ask questions to, and based on all the information it has in its system, it tries to guess the best answer based on predicting the next word. So essentially, it's not something that's thinking, it's something that's trying to predict what the best answer is based on what it knows. And it definitely comes with some issues because you're responsible for judging if it's correct. And a lot of people just assume it's right, but it's just the same thing as the internet and Google, but there's a lot more context into answering your question.
Mm. So you describe it as something like a calculator for words. So it is a powerful metaphor for people maybe don't understand it. What does that framing help people understand that maybe technical explanations don't?
Yeah, so I think technically it just gets overcomplicated so much. And if you say like all these buzzwords like large language model or trying to explain like all these words that are behind AI, like transformer or all these different things, it just gets confusing, but then half the room checks out. But it's pretty simple. I mean, everyone remembers the first time they used a calculator. And it's just a calculator that you put words into and get responses out of. And the calculator is something that kind of handles the repetitive nature of something and kind of kills this waste of time of doing things on hand. It handles all the busy work and lets you focus on thinking through things. And AI is the same way, but just with language and trying to like mathematically predict the answer it's giving you.
So one of the underlying shifts that you talk about in the book is moving AI from the background into everyday life. So for people who maybe haven't used it a lot before, what does it actually look like in practice?
Yeah, so one thing we go over in our book is just all the different use cases. There's a statistic that 94% of things people do should be handled by AI. To an extent, there's all this repetitive work and thinking that's pretty unnecessary. And there's this other side of it, the 6 to 8% that's down to like human judgment and creativity and thinking through things. So it can be a variety of things. It could be, in your personal life, like making a shopping list or workout routine or maybe reading a confusing email or translating something, but it can be all sorts of different things. Some of the things we do at the company I work with, and I answered, that's kind of the business that came from behind this book. A lot of what we do is automating systems for different businesses, like even trying to automate like their shipping process for shipping out orders to customers, all these different things. But it's really something that once something is already working, you can just replicate it and automate it in a lot of ways. But essentially, just there was no memo that kind of introduced how this works. And it's a huge issue because it's really something that's so easy to use. It could do almost anything you ask it. And a lot of it is just kind of helping people understand the scope of what it can be used for, which is something we talk about a lot with all the use cases.
So you're very clear that people remain in control. Where do you see people either maybe over trusting or under trusting AI right now?
Yeah, so I think a lot of that comes with security. There's been so many different things, especially just regarding data that you upload into it, and you should be careful. Most of these AIs, you are completely safe to an extent of uploading like a bank statement and asking about it, but it doesn't mean that you should, I mean, there's data leaks all the time with Apple, with Google, and it's something that it predicts, it doesn't know something. So it's very easy to be over trusting of the answers as well. But I think something that it's very under trusted for is research. I mean, it is incredible in anything with numbers and regarding data that is already accurate. So really just trying to take advantage of understanding things that are already confirmed through science or mathematics or previous studies and helping you really understand and break things down. I think that's something that people really don't use it as much for as a beginner, and really just try to give it as much context as you can, give it all the facts, and try to judge whether or not you think the answer is correct.
Because that is a big thing for people is the narrative around the fact that AI does hallucinate. For somebody who's fairly new to using it, how can they tell the difference?
So it is very hard to tell the difference, and that's why it's so important to always be double checking everything. But I think it comes with almost experience of using it over time. You'll kind of recognize the patterns it'll go into. And ultimately, with hallucinations at this point, it comes down to what you ask it. The right prompt, if you're prompting correctly and giving it all the right information to make a decision, it won't necessarily do that. But if you're leaving all these gaps between what you're asking it, it'll start pulling information out of nowhere, and that's kind of where you start to see those hallucinations.
Mm. And you do make a strong distinction between search engines and prompts. So, what's the biggest mindset shift that people need to make there?
Yeah, so I mean, with Google, you type in your words of what you're looking for. You get these list of links to click through, and you're doing all the work of comparing things, reading things, trying to decide what you actually need and what works for you. Where it's almost like you're not searching for something, you're almost trying to direct the browser to what you're looking for. Google says like, here's 10 different doors, pick the one that you think you want, and who knows if you're picking the right one. Where AI and prompts, you're able to ask exactly what you're trying to get, and then it combines all the different things on the internet and the knowledge base inside the AI to give you an answer.
I do love the line that AI is like an extremely eager intern, because that's how I see it too. It's like a research assistant who's really clever, but they've got to be prompted well or explained well what you want them to do. So, what do people misunderstand about that dynamic?
Yeah, I think that people oftentimes either want too much or too little with, like an intern. A lot of the times, especially younger interns with AI, it's someone who's fast and capable, but they don't have all the context behind what they're doing and they can't read your mind. So it's like you can't give it vague instructions and expect these crazy results. So you do kind of have to lead it in the right direction and give it directions and instruction and make sure you're teaching it and giving it the right things. And the people who don't get the most out of it, they usually aren't the most technical people. They just understand the question they're asking and they're comfortable with knowing what they're trying to get.
So, you've introduced what you're calling the HAT method or HAT method, history, attitude, and task. Why is that such a game changer for results?
Yeah, so this is something me and my co-author Andy came across. He's my co-founder of the business AI Answered we run. And before any of this was even a thing, he was working with like venture capital and finance firms, trying to figure out what prompts get the best results. And oftentimes people were using it just like a search browser, giving it these vague questions about, normally would generate the list of websites to visit, but you can't go without some sort of structure, I think, when it comes to anything important. So when you talk about the HAT method, first you're giving it the history. So you're giving it everything that's happened like in the past and the background, and where AI is really good at predicting patterns, this really helps it out. And it needs to know like kind of exactly what it's doing before you give it a job. And this kind of comes back to treating it like an intern. And with the attitude, you're kind of assigning the personality to it. Do you want it to be direct? Is it an email? You want it to be like warm and charismatic? And the task is just outlining what you want to do specifically. And all of this comes down to just giving it as much as you can to give you the answer. And I think you mentioned things that people underlook earlier. One of the best things is you can turn on like the voice recorder mode and just talk to it, talk it through something. I mean, people worry about like typing out like these super long prompts, and you can just turn it into a phone call and just blabber on for 5 or 10 minutes about what you're handling. And when it knows everything you're thinking and what you're looking towards, it'll really help you out.
So, could you walk us through maybe before and after example of a weak prompt versus a strong one?
Yeah, so I guess a week prompt would be help me with a gym plan, help me with the gym routine. And the issue with that is it doesn't know really any specific goal in mind, doesn't know anything about you. and it doesn't know your history of, have you been to the gym or not. And I think the difference will be giving it the background of maybe I've been in the gym for 1 or 2 years and I haven't put on a lot of muscle, just everything you would tell a trainer. And then, like, this is how much I weigh. These are my dietary restrictions and routine. And my goal is to, I don't know, get like lose 10 pounds and add a little bit of muscle. And based off of that, it can get this super elaborate routine for you and make it easier and, give you even a meal plan to work off of and all these different things. It's so good at even adding on and going beyond what you ask it if you lead it in the right direction, which is huge in these sorts of scenarios. But another thing is just revising it. Like, really take a good look through what it gives you. And this comes down, I think, one of the first mistakes I made when this came out was, with sending a letter or an email or a memo, telling it to do it and then just copy and pasting it. That's the worst thing. Try to stay learning along with what it's giving you, and if something doesn't seem right, just revise it or tell it, maybe I left this out and I want to also add in like a stretching routine. Maybe that's something that's part of your fitness goals. So really it's all about having a conversation with it, and using it like an advisor as well as an intern that does work for you.
So what you're suggesting is AI improves through having conversations, not one-shot answers. So why is that back and forth really important?
Yeah, so the back and forth really kind of helps it teach itself. That's one thing that with AI and why it's always getting better is based on every conversation, it's updating its memory of what it knows about you. And for example, like if I were to go into my ChatGPT and ask it, what do you know about me? And how do you tailor your responses to me? It would give me this, if I asked for a long document, it could give me 10 pages of you like when it comes to something professional to be very direct and consultative or all these different things it learns about you. And it to some point and to some extent, it knows exactly the type of response you're looking for. And ultimately through these conversations. And it sounds weird to say is it gets to know you better, but it really is just pattern recognition at the end of the day. So if you're kind of telling it what's working, what's not, it's going to get better and work with you.
So you've used some real life applications in the book and stories. So you've got a story about somebody preparing for a doctor's visit. So what does that example tell people, or I suppose the reader, about AI as a thinking partner?
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, we try to just give people as much scope as possible into AI's capabilities. I think that's something where, only 20% of the population has adopted it at this point. So there's other 80% that are catching up and they don't know the use cases. So we just tried to give as many as possible. But for an example from the book, there is, if you're prepping for a doctor's visit, you might have all these different questions and things, and it can help you get organized and maybe even do a little research beforehand that can really help you out. It can kind of help you summarize what you're feeling or try to like kind of navigate what those symptoms are because if you explain it wrong to your doctor, then it's the same issue of not giving enough context. So it just helps you prepare and feel confident walking into things and comfortable. So I don't think there's any harm in doing something like that, but there's definitely some scary side of people are saying like, I'm out of breath right now after I was running, what should I do? And it's like, maybe it's thinking it's heart attack. Like it's all about the context and just helping you be prepared for things.
Something that stood out was about, it's not just information, it's about confidence for people. Are we underestimating AI as a tool for helping, for example, reduce anxiety and cognitive overload?
100% we are. I could go on about so many different things regarding that, but it really is this tool that helps you navigate everything around you. And, it 100% can help you turn your anxiety into confidence because, I mean, especially with anxiety, it's usually like something you're putting off or the feeling of something needing to be done. And AI is really good at laying out a plan for you or helping you stay organized and saving time. But honestly, especially with our audience, it feels like this book almost becomes more of a self-help book than just teaching AI or being technical because it really is something that once you get the skill of prompting it and getting the right results from it, you can teach yourself anything and really help solve a lot of your own problems. And you can really remain like autonomous and like in control of your life in so many new ways that previously you might have had to seek an expert for. And with all this information out there on the internet and studies and research that's pulling from, it's just not something that's really required anymore.
Just on that note, there's been quite a bit of discussion in the news, for example, around people using AI and it's negatively impacted their mental health. So there are people, I've certainly been reading about people who've fallen in love with their AI, for example, and decided to marry it. So it certainly does have downsides as well. What do you really see as the balance here between a tool that can be incredibly useful for people, but then also needing guardrails to prevent people from perhaps misusing it or vulnerable people falling into positions that they probably shouldn't with it?
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, it's the same as the internet. Even just looking at all of the legislation that's coming out, even the guardrails being set around it, just like legally and in policy, it is just almost exactly like a new version of the internet coming out. And a lot of the same things apply where it's just the basics of like self-control and knowing how it works and how to use it for your benefit. So I encourage people to just practice using it as much as possible. And you'll find yourself, after a few weeks of messing with it, using it for these tiny tasks and really trying to figure out all these different small problems in your life. So I think that using it to be more of a problem solver and taking the approach of just being curious and like a lifelong learner is really what prevents that sort of thing. Because yeah, there are those cases where it becomes like this rabbit hole people go down, but oftentimes they're just bringing it onto themselves.
Yeah, I've read recently there's and people out there who actually genuinely believe that the AI is sentient. There's somebody I was reading about on, I can't remember where I read it now, but he was absolutely convinced that he'd managed to jailbreak AI and that it was actually sentient, it was a real thing, and that the world was holding it back, etc. So I guess, like anything, there are going to be people who struggle with it or may misuse it in certain ways. But I'm pleased that there's guardrails, there's policies coming into place that will help to balance that to some degree.
Being convinced that it's sentient, I mean, there's a lot of bias too in the context you give it. So if you're leading it in the direction of, it can almost like put together when you're trying to get an exact sort of answer. So I mean, you can almost prompt it in the right way and get the answer you're looking for. So a lot of times you will see something like that, but at the end of the day, it's just a word model, like the calculator for words that is trying to guess that next answer or sentence. So yeah, all of that's definitely avoidable, understanding how it works and using it responsibly.
So you talk about using AI for small daily decisions, little things like even choosing what to wear. So why do these tiny wins matter so much?
Yeah, so I guess this comes back to like potentially how it can help with anxiety, but really there's just like this huge mental load that people bring upon themselves with like even small decisions. I mean, everyone does it, and it really just does prevent overthinking. When you have all these small choices, it's really good at just breaking down what you're telling it and laying it out for you in plain words. And I mean, especially like for me, I get up and plan my day right in the morning. And, there's oftentimes there's like a few less decisions you have to make before your day even starts, which is just really takes a lot of the stress out of your day when, going back to the 92/8 rule that we have, this ratio of the 92% of things that AI can probably handle. I mean, that's just freeing up 92% of the things you're trying to accomplish every day. And it really just lets you, take control of your decisions uh, and do things that actually matter to you.
So reducing cognitive load is really important. And there are lots of very famous people who are renowned for reducing their decision making as much as possible, like wearing the same outfit, not same outfit, but the same type of clothes, almost like a uniform, eating the same breakfast every day with that idea of reducing cognitive load. So AI taking that off people's plates can only be a good thing.
Yeah.
So if somebody's listening, and I'm thinking about my dad, for example, my dad is sort of classic baby boomer. He knows of AI, but he's not really prepared to play with. I've set it up for him. I've downloaded ChatGPT onto his phone and had a bit of a play for him, but he's not kind of there yet. If, say, somebody like that's thinking this all sounds really useful, but I don't know where to start, what's the simplest entry point that you'd recommend for somebody?
Yeah, I mean, just open any tool, ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini, and just treat it like a browser. Treat it just like Google. Experiment and play around with it. I mean, it really is a playground and it's fun. You can ask it whatever you want. Like one of our examples was cooking with Gordon Ramsay. It could take all the context of him on the internet and give you advice on what to cook and give you a recipe. And it's so fun. So really, I think just by starting by using it like instead of Google, all you have to do is download it. You don't even have to make an account, but there definitely is like I don't want to say like it's addicting in a way. I mean, it kind of is when you get used to working with it, but you almost become more eager and curious in how to use it as you learn with it. And that's where a book comes in because, the older generation, they don't know exactly what it can be used for, even though it's easy, it can be used for almost anything. But, it's also important, in things like a book to explain what it shouldn't be used for as well. But honestly, I think experimenting with it and just giving it a shot is really just the bottom line of getting started.
Now, you've got a section in your book on AI powered scams, which I think is something that a lot of people are quite concerned about. So, how is AI changing the sophistication of scams, and what do people need to watch out for?
Yeah, I mean, the scams aren't new. It's just they're getting so much better. In a classic example would be the phone call scam of phishing or trying to get your credit card information. And at this point, with like the audio AIs, it can call you and the number looks the same number and contact name as say like your grandchild. Like say it would look just like your grandson's number name. It might sound exactly like them. And one we hear a lot is like, I just got into a car crash and I need to pay for an ambulance. Can you send me your credit card information? And I mean, this really is sort of the classic scam of trying to get that bank account information, but it's just so much more sophisticated. The same thing over emails, where it can, almost look like the email address from your company, letters, all these different things. It's making people smarter. It's also making these scammers a lot smarter in what they're doing. So really it comes down to just slowing yourself down and asking yourself, the basic questions of, is there a second door, a way I can confirm this is actually who I'm talking to? And 90% of the time, if it's something that looks like a scam where you're suspicious, you can put it into an AI and ask it, like, are there any red flags or are the green flags? And it can almost lead you through it. But we do have like a five-step process in the book about how you should go about doing that and just generally, even without using AI, how to avoid these sort of things.
And obviously, video is getting more sophisticated as well. I actually, just while I was eating lunch before, I was watching a video with somebody exposing a scammer, and it was an AI generated video, obviously not the actual person. And what he asked the person to do was actually hold up three fingers in front of their face because that will apparently sometimes make the video glitch. And the guy refused to do it, and in the end terminated the call. So that was actually, obviously a scammer. But that's the other thing is AI generated video can look exactly like the person. So it's something where it opens up an enormous world of opportunity for people, but also this downside of scams are getting far more sophisticated and we need to be much more aware of them than we were. So you introduce your trust system. Can you walk us through how somebody should respond when something feels off?
Yeah, so the first thing, like I said, is just slowing down, pause the moment. And if something feels like super urgent and important and something you have to do right now, that's one of the first signs it's a scam. If it comes out of the blue, is they really try to hit on that like that emotional tie to it and just to get it done and whatever it is. But there's a few other steps behind that. The next one will just be checking the source, and not just reading the story they're trying to tell you. And you see this a lot with like those AI videos is you can pretty much just look it up and if it doesn't pop up in a headline, it's probably not real. So the third thing would be using a door you trust. Like for a bank scam email, just calling your bank, walking into your bank. The fourth step is cross-referencing, which is kind of the second, third step put together. And then the third one is just asking some sort of safety checker, which maybe that's uploading a screenshot of your email to AI. Maybe it's looking at like a website verifier. We're looking at reviews on something. Scams are so common these days. I think for the boomer generation specifically, it's like 1 in 5 now getting scammed
Mm.
with AI in America, which is quite a high number. That's meaning it's probably someone in your family is going to at some point. They're not aware of these things. So I guess the biggest thing is just that step one of slowing down. And that's kind of the whole chapter of just slow down and verify if it's real.
Do you think the regulatory and legal systems are keeping up?
That's a great question. Just this week, there was the similar act to like the Internet Act was passed for AI in the US. And that's something that it's like just now it's getting caught up. And there's all these things with like copyright and plagiarism and where that comes into play with like art or literature or research. And I think all of that's been hit on by now, but and even in Europe, I was just in Luxembourg for a banking conference, and it seems that their policies are on par with where America's at as well, and the same for a lot of these other countries where old law does still kind of govern it, but there's this huge gray area of when things are okay and when they're not. And even just specifically with plagiarism as an example, it's all on a case by case basis of what the intention is and whatnot, because it's very hard to prove something is AI. It's like almost impossible to. But it really depends on like the intention and then what the consequences are as well.
And it's you're right, it is getting much harder to tell, and there's certainly a lot of chatter out there in the world where people think they can identify AI. You know, for one example, obviously, is M dashes in writing and Oxford commas and things like that. And as somebody who's been using those for decades, I actually find that quite annoying because it's like now I write and I kind of like, oh, I've got to go through and take my M dashes out, or people are going to think it's AI. So we seem to be
Right.
in a world, I think, where there's a almost like a split. There are people who are, I suppose it's a bell curve in a way. There are people who are very committed to AI, love it, use it. There's a certain cohort of people who are very anti-AI and will go to any lengths to kind of tear it down in a lot of ways, and a lot of people in the middle. So I think we've got this sort of, it's for people who are new to it, who don't understand it, it can be very difficult to figure out where the truth lies, I suppose, in a lot of ways. What would you say for
I
them?
fully agree. Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing would just be trying it yourself. It's really hard to judge something that you've never used and you don't understand how it works. So, really just educating yourself on how it is and why it works and experimenting with it teaches you a lot because even if you're someone who like absolutely hates AI because of all these use cases of like scammers or security and everything else, if you don't understand how it's working and you haven't used it yourself, I mean, the chances you get affected by it only go through the roof. So it's something where, also it's going to be adopted into everything at some point. I mean, I'm sure when the internet came out, there was a similar bunch, but I do think it's good that people are more cautious about AI, than the internet when it first came out because it's a far more powerful tool with so much potential for good and bad. I guess our suggestion would just be at least educating yourself on it, if you're not going to use it. But the benefits of using it just far exceed not doing so. And even just like when you're using ChatGPT, there's a simple setting you can turn off where it doesn't save your data to train models. And that's where a lot of people get scared of the security and where your data is going. And there's all these different things that, if you know about, it's not such a scary thing, but some people think it's the devil. So it's like really just try to be educated on it and then take a different approach.
If you had to give, say, one rule people should never break when they're using AI for things like financial or medical or personal situations, what would that be?
I think the main thing is just never make a decision fully on what it tells you, like ever. That's, one of the biggest things is like it should be doing your repetitive work, your organizing, clearing up some cognitive load or whatnot, maybe helping you with data or numbers or research, or there's various different things. But one thing we preach is it should never be making decisions for you. And that's why it's scary is all these agents come out where, they talk about AI agents, which for anyone in the audience that doesn't understand that, it makes decisions without a human in the loop at all. And, for a lot of cases, like going through spreadsheets or just reading and summarizing things, that's perfectly fine. But where it's actually making decisions for you, like specifically with your bank account or investments or in your career, it's just like a no-go every time. Specifically for someone that doesn't understand it, I'd say it's really different to an expert who fully understands how something's working and chooses to integrate their bank account, maybe to have AI manage their investments or something. But the fine line pretty much always comes down to not letting it make your decisions at all.
And we have seen a bit of that, although having read about it, I'm sometimes get a bit skeptical and go, did this really happen, or is this just something somebody's written for clickbait? But there's certainly been articles where people have, say, for example, set up Open Claude and the Claude bot's there and given them access to bank accounts and kind of a task and gone, knock yourself out. And then some of those things have been spectacularly successful and others have been spectacularly unsuccessful. I do remember reading one where they gave AI access to a credit card and it ran up the huge credit card bill doing whatever it is it asked it to do. So I think, yeah, how do we separate that, what's actually real in the world, I guess, as opposed to stories that people write just to get clickbait?
Yeah, so I think that all comes back to the trust system of finding, a second door to prove that it's credible and just doing your own thinking, like especially with social media, it's like incredibly hard to, as you're scrolling through videos like TikTok or Instagram and Facebook with these reels, it's like you're almost not thinking, you're just consuming and it's entertaining and like a video will come across with the news and there's a pretty big chance that it might be AI if it's going viral for some reason. So always just second guessing things and checking out what the Instagram account is. If it's ABC and they have a few million followers, then it's probably real. But I mean, it comes down to everything. Even a lot of the things on the news might not be credible and it's hearsay. So it's like really just double checking everything you're seeing and trying to cross-reference it just like anything else that you're researching. But I mean, especially with these AI things, though, you almost hear it through word of mouth. I've heard of someone using the Claude bot where it's automating their everything and it sells all of their crypto information and deletes all their emails. So it's like, okay, that's real. I know the person. Like, it is a serious issue. But I think a lot of people choose to be blind to these sort of things unless they see it. So also just like staying aware of that and the potential of all these new tools.
Now, you position AI as a support for cognitive health, not a replacement for thinking. What's the line between support and dependence?
Yeah, so that's a great question, especially I think something for teachers to understand as they're like allowing their students to use it. But it's very easy to just give it the prompt and get the answer and trust it. But you really got to be learning along with everything that's going on through this process. Like I was just studying for an exam, going through all the textbook with AI and having it teach me. And there's the same other side of it where it's like someone is just having to do their exam. So, and that applies to everything. Like even with a lot of our clients, if you use it as like a study partner or an advisor, not a substitute for something, it's amazing. I have this long list of books I want to read, and it can pretty much summarize all of them into the key ideas and teach them to me. But having it quiz you on your learning is one way to go about that. Turning your notes into summaries and keeping track of everything, keeping your brain engaged. But there are all the studies of people becoming extra reliant on this AI and the IQ level is literally going down according to the studies of like K through 12 students using it. And that's one of the issues we're really working on is sustainably and ethically using it because it's all down to the person. Maybe they are substituting it, but really that's why the foundation matters just as much as the use cases.
Yeah, because that is an issue. Is it going to make people sharper thinkers or lazier ones? Because I suppose that's going to depend very much on the motivation of the person. Some people are going to want, it's like they take the lazy shortcut because they can, as opposed to using it to enhance their thinking. What's your view on that?
Yeah, so I mean, it comes down a lot to what you're doing too, because I think you see it a lot in business, and Elon Musk has been quoted for saying that he likes hiring lazy people because they find the fast way to do things. And a lot of times in business, especially startups where we work in, speed is really prioritized over efficiency, as opposed to like some conglomerate like Amazon, for example. But to get back to the question, making people sharper or lazier, I think it just makes people better at what they're already doing. Someone who's already a genius in engineering, they're only going to become 10 times more productive using it. But someone who's already just barely getting by, of course, they're going to be substituting it. And that's why the education matters so much in that piece of it, because really it can make you lazier if it's doing everything for you, of course. But it really has the potential to teach you anything and make you better at anything. So sky's definitely the limit with what you can use AI for. It's just, kind of deciding how you want to use it.
It's an incredibly useful tool. I mean, I used it just the other day for a 3-day summit that I signed up for, but didn't obviously have time to attend it. and everyone got a copy of the summit afterwards for 48 hours or something like that. And again, I wasn't going to find time in that 48 hours to listen to 3 days worth of summit talks. They all had transcripts. So what I did was download the transcripts for each session, uploaded it into ChatGPT and said, can you please summarize the key points from this lecture and tell me the application to my business? And then once it had done that for all of their sessions, I then combined all of those and said, can you now scan all of these documents and find the 5 key things that I should be doing differently? And it was brilliant, saved me so much time.
Yeah,
You know,
no, it's wonderful when you use it to organize and summarize and teach you. It's really just the best. But
mm.
yeah, it can be a substitute as well.
So if you've got someone reading your book and they only implemented one thing from it, what do you think would make the biggest difference to someone's life?
I would say just the hat method, and really practicing and implementing it, trying your best to actually adopt AI into not just your daily life, but when it makes sense. And over time, I think it's something that inherently you'll continue to find yourself using just because of how good it is. I mean, it's so simple, but just with the hat method, just give it the context if you're going to be prompting it and try to, give it instruction, lead it in the right direction, and don't let it make your decisions. That's pretty much all of our advice from, some of the core principles summed up, but really it is a very simple thing, but in the end, it's all about understanding its scope and its foundation that helps you really excel and be good at it.
So just to wrap up with the final question, I know this is tricky because of the exponential rate of change of AI, but what do you think people will look back on in, say, 5 years' time and realize they completely underestimated about AI?
Yeah, I think just the potential. I mean, we're so early on. I just saw a map of something OpenAI put out of what AI is currently being used for, and then what its potential is to be used for in each industry. And there's just like this drastic room for improvement already. And even within the next year, it's going to keep exponentially getting better. I mean, people keep talking about calling it like the AI bubble and that it's going to pop at some point. And it's like, no, this is a revolutionary technology, just like the internet. I don't think it's going anywhere. So really underestimating what it can do now if you're prompting it correctly, and especially some of these bigger companies giving it, millions of files of context to work off of. It's unbelievable. But in 5 to 10 years, who knows where we're going to be, and it's only going to get better from here. So I think really it's just about taking advantage and trying to learn now and keep up with it, because even as an AI business that is focused on education and training and adoption, it's like even our team struggles to keep up with everything improving because it's improving so quickly. Even just we've talked to some developers at like Anthropic and OpenAI and Google, and all of them are saying at this point the AI is building itself more than their developers. So really just don't underestimate the compounding effect that it's going to have on itself and try to keep it in mind.
So I guess a closing thought really is for those people listening who perhaps haven't tried anything with AI, haven't actually dabbled in it as yet. I guess the message is that it's here to stay. And the longer you leave it to get on board with it, the harder it's going to be to learn. It's better to get in now while it's potentially a bit easier to learn than wait down the track till it's, really huge.
Fully agree. Yeah, and the fear of AI is one of the biggest issues with its adoption, of course, in businesses and education. But that's why I wrote this book to, set that foundation to help people understand it and how it's working in the world, even if it's not someone that's going to be using it for themselves. But in the end, it really is this incredible self-help tool that it's just so powerful, even compared to the internet. If people, especially the older generation, learns how to use it, it's going to be immensely helpful just in their daily life and saving stress, helping them stay on top of things. And that's pretty much all it comes down to.
Wonderful. All right, Noah, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you taking time out to have a conversation about the book. For those people watching, there's a link to buy the book beneath the video, whichever platform you're watching it on, there'll be a link there for you. And encourage you to get out and if you've not dabbled in AI yet, encourage you to get started.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolute pleasure.